Committee can come back to order. As we left it off before the vote, Ms. Schwartz took up 9 minutes of her 10. It now goes to the majority side. Is there someone who seeks recognition and opposition of the amendment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I claim time in opposition.
Mr. Heelskamp from Kansas is recognized for 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Instead of offering a serious alternative to our budget, which for the first time in years seeks to put us back on a path of fiscal responsibility, I believe this amendment wants to go back down the same old path of tax more, spend more, and regulate more. And Mr. Chairman, we've tried this path. The result, according to the bipartisan panel that appeared before us last month, is we are staring down a debt crisis. When I asked the panel members from across the political spectrum how long we had to fix the crisis, the answer wasn't 25 years or even 10 years, but at most 5 years. We were advised to act by every member of the panel as if we had no more time. The bottom line is, Mr. Chairman, we cannot afford to wait to make these tough choices. We owe it to the American people to tell them the truth, not offer more class warfare and blaming others for the fiscal mess we find ourselves in today. Even worse than the fact that those on the other side of the aisle are not offering a plan to tackle these serious problems is that this amendment, as with virtually all of their amendments, will only dig the hole deeper. This amendment in particular presents a false choice of helping seniors with long-term care or taxing, even more, job-creating businesses. The choice we have today on this amendment is whether we will promote fiscal responsibility administered by those closest to the people who are on Medicaid, or will we pile on even more top-down Washington control where successful outcomes are only measured by how much we spend, not by results. The budget before us calls on Congress to block grant Medicaid. It allows federal Medicaid expenditures to grow at the rate of inflation plus population. That's not a cut. Only in Washington would that be considered a cut, Mr. Chairman. But more importantly, this would give governors and state legislators the ability to determine how best to meet the needs of their states. And Mr. Chairman, as a state senator for 14 years, I can tell you Medicaid was one of our biggest budget challenges, and a so-called solution from Washington never made the situation better. What our budget does on Medicaid is recognize the time-honored principles of federalism, returning power to the states to serve the people. And in keeping with that Washington knows best trend, this amendment would mandate that not only the federal government spend more money, but would require states to spend more of their budgets on Medicaid as well. And if you've read any news reports, you know that virtually every state is facing serious financial challenges and cannot afford more spending mandates from Washington. According to the Center for Budget and Policy Priorities, Ms. Schwartz's home state of Pennsylvania has a budget shortfall for fiscal year 2012 of $4.2 billion, or 16% of their budget. And in my home state of Kansas, we are facing a $492 million shortfall, or almost 9% of our budget. Last year, it was $510 million. These state budget gaps are likely to continue next year as well, and the only difference between the states and the federal government is that at least 49 of us actually are required to balance our budgets. Currently, the average state spends about 21% of its budget on Medicaid, and in Pennsylvania, it's actually 31%, according to the Commonwealth Foundation. So with this amendment, what will the states do? They will not be able to cut eligibility on their current mandates put forward under Obamacare, and they are facing the addition of millions more to the Medicaid rolls once all the health care mandates kick in if we do not take the advice of this budget to repeal it. Repeal that would rightly include the Class Act, which was supposed to address the long-term care issue, but instead will add billions to our unfunded liabilities. Without repeal under Obamacare, 131,000 individuals would be added to Medicaid in my home state of Kansas alone, and the 100% payments from the federal government run out after just a few years. The alternative under this amendment is to have the states take on even more money out of education and transportation or raise taxes, which will only further damage our frail economy to pay their share of Medicaid. I think many folks fail to realize, Mr. Chairman, this is a shared program where the states are required to pony up additional dollars. And this is just one of the reasons why for years governors, Republicans and Democrats alike, have asked for more flexibility to better serve their states' needs, their folks that are on Medicaid. Another reason I believe to look to block grants is to face the reality that Medicaid is already a growing patchwork of Medicaid waivers and demonstration projects in state after state, as the amendment sponsor has indicated. According to the CMS website, there are currently 451 waivers under the Medicaid program. In Pennsylvania, there are 12. This does not count the hundreds, if not thousands, of waivers which are denied, as I discussed in my opening statement. When I worked in the Kansas legislature to try and help seniors stay in their homes and actually save money, we were actually denied a waiver by the Bush administration. So this actually is not a partisan issue, Mr. Chairman. Finally, I think we need to ask, how is Medicaid doing now? GAO estimates a 10% error in Medicaid payments. And the FBI is currently investigating numerous folks that are for fraud in Medicaid, and that does continue. And with that, I will yield 3 minutes to my colleague, Mr. Rokita. I will note in the state of Kansas and many other states actually do much more than the minimum that's required under Medicaid and provide services for our seniors and home and community-based services for the disabled and elderly as well. And this approach offered in this amendment, spending more money and taking authority away from the states, has created, in my opinion, this financial mess in Washington. Our plan to prosperity, Mr. Chairman, presents a real alternative to start climbing out of this hole and not to dig it deeper. I urge my colleagues to vote no on this amendment and say no to political gamesmanship when we should be providing serious leadership to avoid a very predictable fiscal crisis. And with that, I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman yields back.